Hey y'all, coming to you from the vaccine line here on Alvarado Street. So I apologize for any background noise. This will be a true testament to the noise canceling headphones that we have here. But this screencast, the purpose here is to be able to start to wrap up our learning cycle on exemplars and vision for student learning. As we've been talking about across the past few weeks, the process of being able to create an exemplar and a vision of student learning gives us an understanding of what learning is to come, ultimately to be able to inform our instructional decisions and improve our instructional decisions in a way that they become more precise and more deliberate as we navigate the complex learning process of our students. Okay, so as you can see here, exemplars and visions for student learning, we've been working with that process and engaging in that process over the past few weeks. What we're going to be talking today in the screencast is how to make more effective instructional decisions based on the information we're getting from those exemplars. We're going to talk about proactive decisions or proactive interventions, such as activating prior knowledge and building background, and just-in-time interventions, such as some of these strategies here that we're going to talk about. The learning to come will eventually, we're going to talk about how to monitor student learning as we make these instructional decisions so that we can either gather data during the lesson, at the end of the lesson, throughout the lesson, to be able to really check if our instruction is working or not, and be able to continue this process of exemplar to drive instructional decisions and then monitoring student learning and rinsing and repeating. So what are these interventions that the exemplar and student vision for student learnings can inform? Well, the first are proactive interventions. These are interventions that are important when the exemplar process surfaces knowledge, concepts, or vocabulary that we realize students are going to need to be able to access. I'm going to say that again, to access the big ideas. What this is not, these interventions are not front loading all the content of the lesson or the key concepts of the lesson. We want students to productively struggle. We want students to grapple to be able to get to the big idea, but we are going to notice that sometimes there is content or vocabulary that students will get stuck on and will serve as a distraction in getting to those big ideas, that we want to think about how we're providing some access to those ahead of time. Okay, this might be prerequisite knowledge from previous grades, it might be prerequisite knowledge from within the same grade level, or it just might be even building upon areas that are outside of our students' schema. So the first example here is activating prior knowledge. Activating prior knowledge is the process of bringing in previous learning to be able to frame current learning, right? We know our students have a wealth of knowledge already and wealth of experiences. It's really trying to tap into this to be able to support their learning of current content, okay? It's easier to learn something new when we attach it to something we already know, right? What we have to be really careful for, and Common Core authors consistently remind us of this, is that student background knowledge and experiences can illuminate the reading or the lesson, but should not replace the lesson or the text itself, okay? So we need to be able to understand what previous content knowledge, what previous lessons, or what previous strategies might be helpful, or might students need to be activated to be able to fully access the big ideas of the lesson itself. Quick mini lessons, do nows, or lesson hooks often work well for this. Then we have building background. This is when we're not necessarily activating knowledge, but we realize that we need to build some knowledge or build some background for students to access the content at hand, right? This is building initial knowledge that might have to do with content-specific vocabulary, contextual, historical, or cultural knowledge, or even addressing the rationale of why for this content. You know, example that I often use is we might have a lesson that brings in the sport of baseball, or a text that references the sport of baseball. We know that the big idea of the lesson is not baseball, but if students are grappling to try to understand this sport that I might know as a teacher is outside of their schema, I might want to find ways to build background to that ahead of time. Examples include vocabulary preview, multimedia or preparatory text, making connections to student lives or other texts, or analyzing visual or music art. Okay. So let's move from proactive interventions to just-in-time interventions. These are the interventions that we use to be able to, when we can anticipate potential misconceptions from students and being able to have the right supports to be able to drop in the lesson at the right time and in the right way that allows students to still productively struggle, but still continue to solidify some of the key ideas that we are shooting for in that lesson. One of the ways to one strategy for just-in-time interventions is this idea of anticipating misconception. As teachers, we want to be engaging in a regular process of using our exemplars that we're creating to be able to anticipate where we think students might get stuck or some misconceptions that they might have. Misconceptions will always arrive, right? We're going to always have students getting confused. But the key to this strategy is the preparation and decision making that we as teachers make to be able to understand the which, the why, the how, and the when. What does this mean, the which, the why, and the how, and the when? Well, by planning for one, which mistakes are appropriate for the class inspection, right? Not every misconception is going to be worth discussing, but if we can identify the highest leverage misconceptions to be able to surface and talk about as a class, we're going to be really able to get a bang for our buck in terms of student learning. We also want to be able to determine why these mistakes are inspection worthy and be able to have an opportunity and a preparation to be able to share that with students and also for ourselves. And then lastly, how and when we plan to surface these mistakes. This can transform moments of student confusion into critical moments of learning, right? We know student misconceptions are going to happen, but how do we use the exemplars that we created to be able to understand which misconceptions we want to surface, why they're so important, and the perfect timing and strategy or way in which we're going to surface these misconceptions. This can lead to incredibly powerful learning. Another strategy for just-in-time interventions is a planned error analysis. Okay, this is when teachers anticipate certain misconceptions to either one, find a student's work that shows that misconception. So ready as we're going around class or looking at student work in our virtual classes to be able to know what we're looking for, which misconceptions we're looking for, and being able to pull that out. Or we might even create that student work ahead of time and create a fictitious student work that shows that misconception because we know students are going to grapple with that. And so we have something ready to show. This is when we engage in students in a process of identifying the error, explaining why it's incorrect, and then beginning to revise the work to make sure to how we would make it correct. There's also a similar build on this, which is still an error analysis, but now it's planned teacher exemplar comparison. This is when we use our own exemplar that we're already creating, and we find the right moment to be able to pull that exemplar in. It might be as the misconceptions are rising, we show our student exemplar and say, how would you do this? It might be say, all right, students, you have 10 minutes to be able to work on your own. And then they come back and compare their own work to my exemplar and see what the similarities and differences are between the teacher exemplar and their own work. This is a beautiful way to get students thinking critically, but also starting to self-identify certain misconceptions they might have. Another just-in-time intervention is to be able to critically and deliberately plan for scaffolds and check for understandings. If we're going through the exemplar and we know what students need to know, say, and do, and potential misconceptions they might have, then we can plan for the key questions, scaffolds, and supports that will be able to help them get there. Right? We might devise questions, nudges, sentence frames, or graphic organizers that seek to support potential misunderstandings just in time. So we don't have these ready just to give from the beginning, but we have them ready to be able to drop in at the moments that we think are going to be most powerful for student learning. We also might want to be practicing this break it down questioning technique. This is when we know some misconceptions might come up and we have some questions ready in our back pocket to be able to drop. We might provide an example that we have ready for the student, right? So if a student is asking for the definition of a prime number and we anticipated that, we might, instead of just giving them the definition, we might say 7 is 1. 7 is a prime number, but 8 is not. Can you tell me what a prime number is, right? We might have that ready. We might provide context. So to help a student who doesn't understand the language or the vocabulary ancient, I might have ready as a teacher to say, well, I hope no one ever calls me ancient. What do you think ancient might be, right? Or I might provide a first missing step, right? What do we always do when the numerator is larger than the denominator, right? Instead of giving them the step. Or I might eliminate false choices. If it were a verb, it would be an action. Is owner an action, right? And if we can be preparing ourselves for some of these things that we know students might grapple with, we become much more prepared to guide student learning, right? Lastly, broken record questions. And we've talked about these, but as we work through exemplars, we notice some foundational understandings that might need to be ready. These broken record questions can be questions that we just come back to multiple times a class and every day, so that these key foundational knowledge that we want students to build no longer become even questions, because they know and they hear us asking about it so frequently. Okay. So as we reviewed here, we've been working with Exemplar and Visions for Student Learning to better inform our instructional decisions. And we'll talk more about on Friday and at PLCs about how we can really prepare ourselves to be most informed. Future learning will bring into monitoring student learning. But the big ideas here is that Exemplar improve our instructional decisions, and that Exemplars and Vision for Student Learning are only deeply impactful if we're using them to drive our decision making in the classroom. And they serve as a roadmap, exemplars and visions for student learning, to be able to provide potential clues along this really unpredictable and complex path of student learning. All right, we got this. Let's improve our instructional decisions. Si se